Hola, mi gente. Welcome back. Another IG Live for this week. We're going to be talking about the art of negotiation. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the comments so you guys know what we're talking about tonight. I love talking about this topic because it stresses a lot of people out, right? So we're going to be talking about negotiation, why it's so important, and how you can actually get good at it with a friend of mine who's been on the podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I hope you are ready to ask some great questions. Hi, Jasmine.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I love your backdrop because I'm sitting on my couch with my Paris pillow.
I love it. I actually took this picture when I went the first time, and it's the only way I can pretend like I'm somewhere exotic at this point.
Yeah, no, I've been to Paris twice, and it's like one of my most favorite cities. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I would definitely retire there if the money wasn't involved.
I'm retiring to Costa Rica.
Oh, yes.
Spend the rest of my life on an island, like the beach, in like a hut. That's it.
I am so here for this. Okay, so let's get into this conversation.
Yes.
We have so much to cover. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself to the audience?
Sure. I am Jasmine, and I am a confidence coach and career strategist, and I help my clients who are primarily women of color to really beat self-doubt, own their confidence, and propel their career. So whether that be leveling up, getting a job, negotiating, landing a pay raise or promotion, I really help you to stop doubting yourself and finally going for it.
Yes, we need that support. So I'm so glad that women like you exist to give us the confidence that we need to really get paid what we're worth. And so we're talking about that tonight. You guys have questions, pop them into the Q&A section. We're going to answer as many of them as possible. But let's start off first off, let's talk a little bit about how you've used negotiation in your career to advance yourself.
Yeah, so actually it's so interesting because I just recently used negotiation to really be able to negotiate more work from home time. So I work at Mount Sinai Healthcare System, so I work full time and I juggle a business, and it's challenging.
Girl, you preaching to the choir over here. Okay.
Yeah, I know you know all about the side hustles. So when I had to actually go back to work, it was going to definitely impede on my ability to be able to focus on my mindset, focus on myself, have work-life balance, and also focus on my business. So right. I just recently negotiated flexibility in my time and more protected work from home days so that I could have a better mindset and capacity to be able to show up every day.
So how did you actually do that, right? Because that's the big question. Like, how do you get to the point where you even feel comfortable asking for that?
Yeah, I think for me, the way that I asked for it was really around just, and I'm a very truthful and honest person, I asked for it in the capacity of my capability to protect my health and wellness. So it was essential for me to really be able to be open about the fact that I have particular rituals that I do in the morning, and I can't do those protective mental health rituals if I have to then go to work every single day. So it was about really being very open and honest about what I need to be able to protect myself, my health and wellness, my emotional state, and to really be able to be my best self.
Yeah, that's super powerful to be able to communicate that, right? Because a lot of us are kind of programmed to just suck it up. Yeah. Even at the expense of our mental health. And that is not a vibe, y'all. We're not doing that.
Not in 2021.
No, absolutely not. Protecting mental health at all costs. And yeah, I mean, that is, and we're going to dive more into this. Like, if you're in a situation where you want to negotiate, but maybe the numbers aren't budging, there are opportunities to negotiate non-monetary things that still have value. And so you're talking about that. So yeah, let's dive into that in a moment. But I would say first off, let's talk a little bit about the mental roadblocks that women especially face when it comes to negotiation. It can feel really daunting, something that doesn't feel normal, natural. I think men are way more comfortable just asking for shit and not caring about the reaction. So what are some of the biggest roadblocks that you see with your clients?
Yeah, I think there's, you hit a lot of it, right? So I think as women, we are traditionally taught to just kind of take what we're given, or we are taught to be in these very supportive roles where we don't really put our needs first. So we often just kind of like push down those desires and those needs, we're also taught to not be ambitious. So men are taught to be ambitious. We are taught to be more complacent and go with the flow. So asking for more money seems like something that ambitious people would do. But if we're not taught to be that, then we're not going to do it. I also think there's like a family factor to this. You know, as a Latina, you know, I love my parents, but I was really taught to like go to school, get a good job, be grateful for the job that you get. There was no such thing as like negotiation. You know, even recently when I just received a job, my dad was like, you know, I was telling him I was negotiating the salary and he was like, wait a second, but there's benefits, right? Like you're going to get a 401k. And so it's not really taught. We aren't really taught to do these kinds of things. We're taught to accept and be grateful. So there's a lot of that component too. So as women, we are taught to be a certain way to be women, but then also your background can really have a lot to do with it as well. And then internal factors, just how you feel about your own worth. So that's something that a lot of my clients need to connect to is like, how do you see yourself and your value? That's a big contributing factor to the reason why we don't negotiate is we don't think we deserve it.
Yeah. We're listening a lot of parts, so I think a lot of people are really loving the vibe of the conversation. So let's start getting into the meat of things. First off, what's the right way to negotiate?
Yeah, so I always tell individuals like negotiation is a two-way street, right? Like if you want something, you have to either give something or you have to prove something. And in many cases, negotiating salary and negotiating pay raises or increases is about you proving that you have contributed in some way to the company's bottom line. So it's about really being able to show that because of you, something has changed or something has become better. It could be that you've bettered your team. It could be that you've contributed to the operations or the efficiency of the company. But it's going to be really important for you to understand that if you're trying to negotiate something, you have to show how you've contributed true value to the company and to the company's bottom line. So go back to their core mission, go back to their core objectives, and think about how in my day-to-day have I been able to actually change this, contribute it, make it better, or decrease something that actually wasn't working in the first place.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I want to add some of the kind of self-employed entrepreneur aspect, right? Because we're still negotiating. We're just not negotiating with an employer. We're negotiating with the brand sponsor, with a company that we want us to pay for our services. And it's really about the same thing. So you're offering a perspective on the value that you have with who you can connect to the brand, what makes you unique as a creator, how this partnership is going to benefit not only you, but them. It's all very much related. It's really just demonstrating your value and making a proposition, usually that they will have as much to gain as you will, if not more.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I think that's a major thing is just seeing the negotiation as like, how have you contributed or what can you contribute? And like really connecting that to what they are specifically looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's say you go into the meeting, you're super confident, you're ready to ask for your raise, and they're like, we didn't have great numbers last year. This is not a great time to ask for a raise. What else can you do from a non-monetary value that can still be beneficial to you from the negotiation standpoint?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that so many of my clients are starting to negotiate right now is what I negotiated, which was flexibility, some kind of flexibility. The world is going to go back to normal at some point, God willing, and you are going to want to take out of this experience what has benefited you. So if there are specific things that helped you in terms of making you a better employee or helping you to focus on your mental health or work-life balance, think about negotiating that. So whether it be work from home or increased flexibility or the ability to be able to manage the meeting days the way that you want to, or do you want more paid time off? Like, is that something that's really going to be exciting for you? Because when the world opens back up, you want to take some vacation. So think about the things that are actually contributing to your core values. So, and think about it outside of work. We sometimes like close our career into a bubble, but you also want to think about what are the things that you value in other aspects of your life, like your relationships, your family, your money. And you want to really think about what can you negotiate within the work environment that will help to facilitate those things. So if you are a woman and you want to have babies, like what can you be thinking about long term that could actually be negotiated in your career now to be able to facilitate you being able to be the mom you want to be? So think about every aspect of your life. Don't just focus on your career. What are the things that you want to do in every aspect of your life? And how can you negotiate something that isn't pay related, but will give you the flexibility to be able to do those things?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay, so is there any time of year that might be the best time of year to ask for a raise?
Yeah, so first off, like I'm the type of person that I think you should always be asking for whatever the hell you want. So if it's a raise, you need to be asking for it. During the pandemic, I had clients who negotiated raises, even though their companies said, like, we're not doing raises. And it's, again, really about showing your value. I think the best time of the year to be really starting to have that conversation is as you're going into your performance review, because it's just a natural point where those things are going to be discussed. But I always urge my clients to like prep that shit up front. Like you don't want to go to the performance review and they just tell you, oh, we're giving you a 5% raise, when you actually wanted to negotiate an 8% raise or whatever you wanted to do. So like prep first, begin early. Don't just step into that meeting and they've got something in their mind and they've already thought about it. They've already put the pause button on it. So really be able to come into that space already having talked about your contribution, already having talked about the things that you want to see as outcomes of that meeting. So it prepares them and gives them the space to know there is going to be a negotiation that is going to happen here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who has direct reports, I will say like there's a lot of value in you telling me what you're doing. Because me being a manager, I don't know what you're doing every second of the day. And if you're not telling me and other people aren't telling me, it's going to be very hard for me to validate what you're saying you accomplish, right? So I think it's like you should always be your own advocate. Whenever you're connecting with your manager or whoever it is, like you need to be constantly having this discussion about this is what I'm working on. I've taken on this stretch assignment. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, so that it's not a surprise when you bring up the numbers because you've been keeping me informed all year long about all the fabulous shit you're doing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I love that. And actually, I tell my clients, like during the year, when you have your meetings, however often you have those meetings with your boss, make sure you're dropping nuggets. Make sure you're actually bragging about the work that you've done, because you're right. We often say they're not valuing me or they're not seeing my hard work. Shit, I got shit to do. Like I got stuff I need to do too. You know, I have direct reports as well. And like I can't keep tabs on all the great things you're doing. So it's really important to be able to do that. And I tell my clients too to keep work journals where you every week, at the end of every week or at the end of every 2 weeks, schedule 15 minutes of time where you think about what did I accomplish this week that I would want to tell my boss about in our next meeting. So you're always, I love that, how you said that, you're always keeping them on top of all of your masterpieces.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. I love that idea of the work journal. Okay, so when do you think it's the right time to walk away from a job versus negotiating? Because, you know, there's sometimes that people are just like, well, I don't even know if I want to have this conversation because they just haven't indicated to me that they value me. But sometimes it might just not be that you've advocated for yourself, right? So how do you know when the right time is?
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I have clients who have said that to me where they're like, oh, my boss is never going to give me a raise. And I'm like, well, have you ever asked for one? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, how the hell do you know? Like, so there's the component of like, I think you have to do that gut check. And I think as women, we have this internal gut check that unfortunately I feel like we don't listen to enough. But I think that there's that gut check of like, when you ask yourself, is this something that I can do? Ask yourself the questions of, have I already asked for it? Have I prepped them for it? Have I been doing the work to make it known that this is what I want and I'm still not getting it? then that means your company really doesn't value you.
Yeah.
And that gut check is, I need to start a job search. I need to go somewhere that is going to value me. But if you ask yourself those questions and you realize that you haven't been putting yourself out there, you haven't been telling them what you want, then I think that the major thing here is you need to speak up for yourself. And I tell my clients all the time, like, you may not get the pay raise, you may not get what you're looking for, but you have to use your words. You have to speak, because the real value is in saying that I spoke up. I didn't get what I wanted, so I know I have to go somewhere else, but at least I used my voice. I said my words. That is the important thing there.
Yeah, that's such an important point. That is half of the battle, is just getting that courage to really have those uncomfortable conversations, right? I don't think we are programmed to feel comfortable bragging, talking about our accomplishments, asking for things. It's just not natural. So what advice do you have to start working on that confidence?
Yeah, so there's a few different things. Like, I see confidence in sort of three ways. So confidence is a lot of internal stuff. Like, confidence is a lot about how you see yourself. So confidence comes from a lack of doubt. It comes from doubt. Confidence comes from limiting beliefs. Confidence comes from you putting a ceiling on yourself. So there's that internal component, but confidence also comes from competence. So it's really about evaluating what are your strengths, what are your areas for improvement, and gaining the competence or gaining the knowledge to be able to fill those gaps, because you will just, in essence, feel more confident if you know what you're doing. So there's the internal component of really beating the doubt, really beating the limiting beliefs, and flipping the narrative on yourself to tell yourself you are the shit. But then there's the competence piece. So, like, what do you need to learn? What do you need to know? And then confidence also comes from experience. Like, you have to take action. The more action you take, the more that you do, the more that you actually put yourself out there, you will start to realize that it's not as scary as you've made it up in your head, and that you are actually capable of doing it. So the confidence piece is work on your mindset, work on the way you see yourself. Who is the woman you want to be, and how do you get to be her, or how do you get to believe you can get there? And then the competence or the knowledge, and then you've got to take action. You've got to gain those experiences. And so confidence will really come when you focus on those three core areas.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to steal that. Confidence comes from competence, because honestly, like, when you frame it that way, it makes so much sense. Just think about the first time you've ever done anything in your life. It's scary as hell. You're like, holy shit, I'm going to fail. There's no way this is going to work. And then you get past it. And then every time you do it, it's easier. And negotiation is that same thing. It's literally a muscle that you have to build.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, is like, once you actually start to realize that you can do it, you'll do it. And the whole thing too is, like, you just naturally are confident when you're doing the things you're great at. So that competence piece and that strength piece is such a core component of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gems being dropped here, y'all. Okay. Let's see. Let's take some questions. If you guys have questions, make sure to pop them in the Q&A section. So how do we negotiate a relocation bonus?
Oh, awesome. I hope you're relocating somewhere with sunshine and beaches and cocktails, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of this, now, negotiating a relocation bonus, I'm guessing you've accepted a job, or you're in the process of accepting a job. One of the things that I want to tell people who are negotiating a job offer is, I've been a hiring manager. When you extend an offer to someone, you don't want to have to go through that shit all over again. You don't want to have to go through the interview process again. You don't want to have to go through anything again. So please recognize that you actually have the power. So you have the power to ask for what you want. It is expected that when you have an offer, you are going to negotiate something. And it's actually expected that if you are not living in the state that you're accepting a job, somehow relocation is going to come into point. So how do you negotiate a relocation bonus? I would tell you to identify how much it's going to cost for you to relocate and ask for it. Like, just go for it. And typically what happens is that if it depends on the amount, they may not be able to give you the whole thing, but they will give you a component of it. So recognize you have the power in this situation. They do not want to let you go. They want you. They've gone through the process with you. You have the power. So calculate how much it's going to cost and ask for it.
Absolutely. And for my content creators and self-employed babes out there, It's the same process. When you get approached with an offer from a brand, you are the one who's in the driver's seat at that point.
Yep.
You have the power to accept, you have the power to reject. And so use that to your advantage. Like, never be the first one to throw out a number. You got to let them do that.
Yep. I love that.
All right, let's see. Another question here. How can you negotiate a job offer, and any tips on how to negotiate it? For example, if you feel the job is actually worthy of a more senior, I'm going to say senior role, maybe, senior job title.
Yeah, so I think the negotiation for an offer really comes from research. So I'm a scientist and I love research. Before you go into any job search, you need to know, based off of what you're looking for, what's the industry standard. And you can use salary.com, payscale.com, but you have to go, even before the offer, you need to know, what are people in this position getting paid? And on those particular websites, you can look by state too, because states are going to be different. New York City is hella expensive. So it depends on where you are as well. But when you get into the phase of an offer, you really want to be able to say something like, based off of my research, the industry standard for this position is within this range, or even throw out a number. And based off of my background and my qualifications, which are X, Y, and Z, that's what I'm looking for. So you really have to go within that, knowing exactly what people in your actual industry and in that field and in that position are making, because you can't fight the numbers and you can't fight the research. So if it's there, that's what they should be giving you, and you shouldn't accept any less.
Yes, absolutely. And if you are a content creator, influencer, that same practice is how you go about setting your rates for sponsored content, for collaborations, all those things. You can literally go onto Google and type in like an influencer rate calculator and type in your profile for your different social media accounts, and based on the followers, the engagement, they will give you a range. So that way, if you're walking into the first time, you know, a brand sponsorship negotiation conversation, and you're like, I don't know how the hell much I'm supposed to be getting paid, there's definitely data from an industry perspective. This is stuff that is studied by marketing people all over the world. And so it's just really a matter of kind of doing that research and knowing upfront, like, what is reasonable, and then ask for a little bit more. And if they drop it down, at least you're back in the range.
Oh, I love that. I didn't even actually know that. So I'm learning here too.
Yes, we're taking care of everybody, whether you got a 9 to 5 or you're self-employed. Like, we're getting all the monies, guys.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Any more questions, y'all? Otherwise, we will wrap this up with a last question for you, Jasmine. What gem would you want us to take away from just how to really just set yourself up for success in the negotiation process?
I think the number one thing in terms of negotiation and setting yourself up for success is really doing that exercise of connecting how you've contributed to the company and the company's bottom line, because that in essence is the hard, it's the selling point. It's you being able to say, like, this was one of your core things you wanted to do this year, and here's how I made it happen, how I made it happen. So it's really the number one thing here is you've got to prepare. You've got to get your talking points ready, and your talking points need to connect to what you've done and how it helped your company.
Absolutely. And for people that want to work with you, where's the best place to find you?
I'm always on Instagram, so check me out at Jasmine Escalera, and you can always just DM me, or I also have a Linktree link on my one-on-one coaching, which is what I am currently enrolling clients into.
Love it. And if you want to find out more about Jasmine, check out her episode on the podcast. I believe it's number 19. You can find out her whole backstory. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, girl.
Thank you so much. I loved it. It's awesome to connect with you. And I love what you're doing, helping Latinas grow generational wealth, because I hope to be that Latina.
Yes. We're getting all the money. All the money.
Yes, all of it.
Thank you, babe.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.